Look at these photos. A city in ruins. All this destruction probably makes you angry, doesn't it? You look at this and you probably hate Israel and think the IDF is a bunch of war criminals. You want to go to a rally and protest, don't you? Scream for the sake of the poor civilians of Gaza. Well, go ahead and do that. But please know that this is not Gaza. All of these pictures are from Iraq. This is what happened when the Allied forces fought ISIS. Tell me, did you protest back then? Did you go around holding a Free Mosul sign? Did you see a soldier coming back home and you called him a war criminal? Probably not. But why? Maybe you think Hamas is better than ISIS. Well, that's just pure ignorance. That's evidently not true. You can compare the charters of the two, the fighting methods, the governing principles, the horrific ways of torture. They are the same. Exactly the same. Or maybe you're protesting now and not back then because you feel for the Palestinians more than you feel for the Iraqi people. So tell me, did you protest when the Assad regime in Syria killed 4,000 Palestinians? Did you protest when the Jordanian government renounced the Palestinians off their citizenship, leaving them without rights? Did you ever take a look at Palestinian life in Arab countries? You didn't. You only care when Jews are involved. Maybe the whole thing isn't really about loving Palestinians, but simply hating Jews. Maybe that's why you walk around calling death to all Jews, even though more Jews live outside Israel and don't have much to do with this conflict. By the way, just to be clear, I'm an atheist. I don't put the Jewish religion over the others, but this isn't about Judaism. It's about the Jewish people. Like it or not, archaeological findings link the Jewish people to Israel from early as the 13th century BC. That's over 3,000 years ago. We're not going anywhere. Get used to it. So if you just feel like hating us, then at least be real about it. Don't lecture us about civilian rights that you obviously care nothing about, since you complain about one genocide but advocate another. Now let's finish with the photos I started with. I don't want you to think that I'm using whataboutism to justify innocent death. This destruction is horrible, but unfortunately, sometimes it's inevitable. When your enemy does everything in his power to use civilians as human shields, civilian death are inevitable. And if you don't understand this, you need to wake up. You have to understand who we're fighting here. You got to finally realize that Hamas has a huge incentive to put the civilians of Gaza at risk and even kill them by itself, as it does all the time. Now, I've served in the IDF for 4.5 years. I know the IDF code of ethics, and I know what happens to those who break it. They are in prison. I guarantee you that the IDF does everything in its power to avoid civilian death, even if it means aborting the mission. But don't take my word for it. Take the word of Richard Kemp, a colonel in the British Army who commanded the British forces in Afghanistan. He completed 14 rounds of fighting around the world, an absolute expert in fighting terror. Listen to what he has to say. Based on my experience and my observations, the IDF does more to safeguard the rights of civilians in a combat zone than any other army in the history of warfare.